All right, welcome everybody to the Central Texas Freedom Cell meeting. Woo! Freedom. Yeah. We tried to do a monthly thing. I think it's going to turn into a bi-monthly thing. We haven't had one in a while because there's so much going on, but super excited to see so many beautiful free faces, smiling faces. People's mouths and lips are starting to make a comeback. It's cool again to smile. And we got a great action-packed day today. And I just wanted to start by welcoming all the children. Hello, children. Hello. Yay! And all the inner childs and the adults in the room. Don't let go of that fun spirit. I wanted to make sure that the events that we do, more often than not, are children inclusive, because when it comes to pursuing freedom and building a better world, we ought to vision what we can do to lay the foundation and lay the groundwork for the success of future generations, so they don't have to struggle, or they don't have to deal with so much tyranny and bureaucracy and terrible things that we've had to deal with in our lives. Although I guess relative to folks in North Korea or whatever, we got it pretty good, but it's always good to be grateful for the freedoms that we do have, but not settle for those freedoms, because I think we can do a heck of a lot better. So I was really inspired when we were at, hey, this is the Inspired Minds Art Center, you're right, that fits. I was inspired after the Greater Reset. We had this after party at Indra's warehouse, and there was music, and there was reggae, and there was little presentations, and there were kids just running all around, like at least 12 to 15 kids, and they were dancing, and they do a lot of acrobatics and like circus performance type stuff there, and the kids were climbing on their lira and all their big stuff, and that was really special for me. I was just looking around in awe, like, wow, this is really what it's all about. So I wanted to make sure this event and most of our meetings that we do have activities and stuff for the kids. And when I walked in, I saw all the Dr. Seuss stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. We didn't plan that, but it fits because we're all goofy and our hair's a little poofy. And when it comes to what we want in life, we're all a little choosy, right? If you wear your mask for too long, you'll start to get a little woozy. But I thought I would read a little excerpt from one of my favorite Dr. Seuss books. This one's dedicated to kids. It's called "Oh, the Places You'll Go," which has an awesome message. If you haven't read it, maybe you read it 20 or 30 years ago. It's really good. You have that one? It's a good one. Yeah. Billy's house. Billy's got some good library selection there. So I'm just going to read a little excerpt from it, and this one goes out to the children and to the adults. Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. You have brains in your head. You have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you are the guy who will decide where you go, or the girl. You'll look up and down streets, look them over with care, and someday you will say, I don't choose to go there. With your head full of brains and your shoes full of feet, you're too smart to go down any not-so-good street. And you may not find any you'll want to go down, and that case, of course, you'll head straight out of town. It's open there in the wide open air. So I think that's really, yeah, Dr. Seuss. I think that book is just really special with what it is that we're trying to do. If you take it literally, we'll get out of the city, the smart cities, which is where the technocracy and control really happens. We'll move out to the country. My family just closed on a 10-acre property, which is super exciting. Getting out there, build community. But even if you're not getting outside of the city, at least we can kind of get out of that control paradigm and that us versus them and that technocracy and surveillance, and we can start to build something better. So not only for us, but also for our children, we can all together say, like, we're not going down that street anymore. We're going down this street, and in fact, we're building this street on our own. It's our street, they're our streets. So I just wanted to throw that out there. All right, and we did create some kiddos activities, and those are going to be led by Patricia, who's in here. And she also leads a co-op program for kiddos. So she wanted to come up and say a few words about that. And I think she has a goal of helping other families and communities to do the same thing. So before she leads the kiddos out, why don't you share with us about what it is that you're working on? Patricia!
We're going to continue this musical theme, and we're going to watch the grass after we build our
Anyway, okay, so I'm Patricia. I was a public school teacher for many years, and then I went to charter. I taught at the Austin Discovery School in East Austin. And then from charter, I basically went to the most regulation to the least possible over my journey. The charter still had too many regulations, so I moved out of that, and then I went to a private school, and I started teaching at a private school, which was it was more of a farm model. It was out on a creek, we had goats and chickens, and just a lot of freedom for the children to just run and play and be outside in nature. And then when I had my own children, there was nothing in Martindale. We live in Martindale, which is east of San Marcos. So we're out on the San Marcos River, which is beautiful and amazing. Highly recommended. And yeah, there was nothing. And I tried to get other people to start a school. No one would do it. So I decided it was what I needed to do. So we started a little school, and it's had a lot of, it's a journey. It's a journey like everything else. But we started out, we have a vacation rental that's on the San Marcos River. So we started out using the vacation rental during the week as the schoolhouse, and then renting it out on the weekends, which is a really good economic model. If you do have a vacation rental during the school year, usually there aren't a lot of rentals during the week. So that's a really viable option to use your vacation. So it was a lot of work though. We were switching, but we kept the schoolhouse in a closet, and then put the schoolhouse out during the week, and then put the schoolhouse away. And then, so it was a lot of work, but it worked for a year because I wasn't sure how committed I was to this idea. So we did that for a year. And then when the big shift happened in 2020, I decided that, if you build it, they will come. So we built a schoolhouse.
Yeah.
So we did it, and it was a ton of work. And Nathan helped us. I wouldn't have been able to do it. Where did he go?
Nathan,
Yeah.
our builder.
He would have picked ours. I wouldn't have been able to do it without Nathan, that is for sure. But a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into, we built a schoolhouse, and we've continued that model. And so it's a little school. We meet 3 days a week. It is a co-op in that the teachers share responsibility for teaching. But then we also have some parents who work and can't offer that. So then we also have paid enrollment. So it's a kind of a hybrid. It's a system that can work for almost anyone because it is so affordable and a sliding scale. So basically I haven't had to turn anyone away for any reason. There's no reason you can't. If you want it, you can be a part of our co-op, which is contrary to what a lot of people had told me as I was going into this. They were like, well, how are you going to do this for working parents? And how are you going to do this for low socioeconomics? And how are you going to do this for immigrants? And how are you going to, and I was like, I'm going to solve all those problems. Like everyone can come. If they want to come, they can come. And so we've been doing that. So we'll be going into our third year this next school year, and we range from kindergarten to fourth grade, and we kind of just add a year, a grade level each year as my children grow, and then eventually I guess we'll just have to cut it off. But my passion is to help other people start small schools. So if you know anyone who's interested but keeps feeling like they are hitting the I can't get over this part, or I can't get over that part, because there's all these walls that you hit at different points, and you think you can't do it, so then you settle for something that isn't the ideal thing you want for your children. I'm here as a support to talk about all the walls that we hit and went right over them and continue to just keep going. So yeah, it's an amazing school. go do some physical, magical stuff.
All right, Susical. Susical. All right, thank you, Patricia. All righty. How cool is that? Okay, baby. That's okay.
Can I take my shoes off?
The Laura. All righty. Wow, how cool is that? Right? Pretty freaking cool. So, sorry, I'm getting my agenda here. I have an agenda. Free us all. Wow, what a great story. And I think it's so cool because a lot of parents want to do that very thing, but so many people, whether it's creating a school or starting a business or moving outside the city or abandoning a bank account and starting cryptocurrency, people have just been programmed, myself included, to immediately come up with blocks and excuses and reasons why it can't work rather than searching for solutions why it can work. And it sounds like she finally just said, I'm just going to do it. And she learned a lot. And now she's in an empowered place to help empower other people. So let's carry that vibe forward, the empowerment, right? There's a dichotomy of victimhood and empowerment. And we get to choose which side of the spectrum we fall on, right? And it's okay for things to happen and life has challenges. But one thing that makes it really easy to step into the empowerment space is community. And that's what we have here with the Freedom Cell Network. So we're going to talk about Freedom Cells here in a sec, but I wanted to kind of break down the strategy that we're aiming for with what it is that we're doing here with the Freedom Cell Network and what it is that we're doing in general, also with the Greater Reset activation. Shout out to the folks that are watching on the live stream as well. Share this with your friends. And so the strategy that we're adopting, first of all, like what's the goal? Well, the goal is freedom and like human flourishing and thriving and living a life that's in line with our values. And if you're in this room, I'm going to assume that you value freedom, not just political freedom, but health freedom and spiritual freedom and just living the good life, right? For the longest time, activism was just like, we got to stop the tyranny and let's go to the Capitol and blah, 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 blah. But there's so much more to the good life than just politics, really. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is this holistic approach. Like Derek Rose talks a lot about holistic anarchism. We're trying to pursue the good life. So I assume that you're on that same page. I hope so. And another thing that we probably have in common is we're not very pleased with the status quo, the way things are going. Although, you know, if you're in that empowerment zone, you have a unique ability to create a life of abundance, a life of freedom, in spite of the fact that there is a tyrannical government in place in this country and there's technocracy and surveillance taking place. So there's different strategies on how to pursue more freedom, individual freedom and a free society. A lot of people want to do politics. A lot of people want to shout at buildings. A lot of people want to storm the Capitol. Right? Turns out that was like an FBI op, more than likely what took place. Same thing with what took place in Michigan with Governor Whitmer. But the strategy that we're going for in the Freedom Cell Network and the general network and movement that I'm a part of is what is called exit and build. So exit the statist system, exit the status quo, exit reliance on government, but not only government, centralized institutions like ERCOT, for example, the Electricity Reliability Council of Texas. That's a double think there, if you ask me. We had these roving blackouts in the wintertime, and now they're like, oh, it's the summertime, we can't handle that either. Like, oh man, they're not so good. So I'm not gonna be in a victim state and be like, oh, ERCOT. I'm gonna be like, let's get solar panels, you know? That's what it's all about. So abandoning centralized institutions, institutions that are antithetical to our values of peace and freedom, man, and building something better, building alternative institutions that are decentralized. For example, exiting the United States dollar monetary system to the best of our ability, abandoning a Chase Manhattan bank account. Chances are, I bet there's people in this room that do business with David Rockefeller's Chase Manhattan Bank. That's an easy step. If you go look at your checkbook and it says Chase Manhattan or HSBC that laundered money for the drug cartels, all you gotta do is just close the checking account, transfer everything over to a local credit union, and set up a cryptocurrency wallet while you're at it. So that's just one example of exiting this centralized, totalitarian money and starting to build cryptocurrency, building agoras, or exiting employment with an employer that expects you to take a vaccine, or it's not even a vaccine, we like to call it a toxin or a jab. Take the jab, and building agoras, which are markets and economies with like-minded people that aren't, they applaud you for not taking the jab, right? But, you know, really what I'm going for, and I invite you guys to come along with me too, is to exit completely, to exit all relations and all association with institutions that we find unethical, like the United States government or the state of Texas, the city of Austin as well, even the old Buda City Council, which used to meet here in this very room. In fact, this is the room where activists pressured the city government to stop fluoridating the water. So that's cool. And the owners of this facility played a big role in that. So shout out to Sinead and Michael. So when it comes to totally exiting, there's a lot of risks that are associated with that. For some people, like Derek Rose, for example, he's like a total agorist. In fact, my very first cryptocurrency transaction was like back in 2012 or 2013. I was paying Derek Rose to write for a daily radio news service that I was doing. He was writing articles. And because he's an agorist, a revolutionary market anarchist who doesn't participate in state institutions, he doesn't have a bank account. He didn't then, and he doesn't now. And so I was wiring him money with Western Union. And I was like physically driving to the HEB on Slaughter, waiting in line, paying 7%. I was like, this is terrible. This is not convenient. I'm trying to help a guy out, right? But man, and then I realized, like, why don't I just pay with cryptocurrency? Of course, I've been talking about Bitcoin, and we read the price of Bitcoin every day on the radio news service. That was the first time I used Bitcoin. But my point is, Derek is like pretty dedicated guy, right? And he doesn't have children. He doesn't own property, right? Although they are building an intentional community in Morelia, Mexico, which is super cool. But it's easier for some people to completely exit, right? And he's done that to the best of his ability. Contrast that with, there's a woman that I did a consultation with recently. She's accumulated assets. She has, she's a professional, right? There's folks that own a home. There's folks that have a 401k. There's people that have children. And the idea of exiting, as in not paying your income tax, for example, or not having a driver's license, for example, the idea of exiting is a little more overwhelming or inaccessible. So that's why whenever I talk about exit and build, it's exit first and then build. I like to flip it around and say, how about we build together right now? Let's go. And then we exit, right? Or if you're down, go ahead and exit and I applaud you. This guy's probably exited pretty far from the system over here. So if you can exit now, by all means, lead by example, let's go. Like I was at this event in Oklahoma, and I was talking about flying to this place. And they're like, you still fly? I haven't flown since the TSA started doing the pat downs. Yeah, I don't do none of that, none of it. He's like totally off grid, opted out. More power to him. I like the inside outside game. It's like 1040 over here. You know? So the point is, people can do whatever they feel comfortable with. And in the meantime, we can all build the infrastructure and the institutions and the networks and the economies and the agoras necessary to make us more comfortable as we transition to a life of genuine freedom. So for example, there's talk of immunity passports, although that's not going to happen in Texas after all. Everyone was like, oh my God, immunity passports. I'm like, not in Texas, not in Florida, maybe in Massachusetts or New Jersey or something. But if you're like-minded, then get the hell out, vote with your feet. I have a friend that's like doing all this mask activism in like Santa Cruz, Florida, California or something. And they're like getting thrown out of Trader Joe's, and they're just like, there's so much friction. And I'm just like, just move out of California, dude, come on. I applaud you, right? You're a brave guy, cool stuff, but you don't have to go yell at the cashier, you know? Just go to freaking Zoe across the street and talk shop with the owner because they're like-minded. So when it comes to immunity passports or that kind of thing, rather than fighting or going to the legislature, which is cool too if people want to do that, there was legislation that passed banning immunity passports. I would rather just give my business to folks that aren't into that. Or, you know, like we're going to talk about this Freedom Cell business directory that we're slowly but surely building. And there's like a jujitsu place, and there's all sorts of businesses that are like, we encourage you not to wear a mask. We want to see your pretty face. Like, come on. So we can spend all this time fighting the existing system, or we can just build a new system like Mr. Fuller says and render the other one obsolete. So that's really what exit and build is all about, or build and exit. And we have plenty of time. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. We got kids, right? I think a lot of people get impatient and they're like worried about the next election or something. They're like, oh my God, Biden got in office, this is gonna be terrible. And I'm like, yeah, but I know we're looking at generations here. And of course, the technocrats and the globalists and these secret society roundtable groups, they're like literally plotting out 100-year plans. And they pass the baton to their progeny or their tax-exempt foundation, like the Rockefeller Foundation. David Rockefeller died. There's still Rockefeller Youth, I guess, like Hitler Youth, but the institution still is around. The Rockefeller Foundation is still participating along with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and all this crazy COVID stuff. They're part of this little scheme that's going on. So we need to not worry about the election of the day. We need to be in the present moment, of course, because that's where all the magic's at, but we need to start thinking a little bit bigger. So I want to invite you guys to participate. That's what I aim to do. I would like to leverage the Freedom Cell Network and the community that we're building in order to slowly but surely, maybe quickly in some areas, but slowly but surely create an environment that enables us to more safely and more easily, with more accessibility for everyone, whether you're scrappy and you just haven't accumulated a bunch of assets, or you don't have a career or whatever, you don't have kiddos, or whether you're an established person in the community, we can all together build something and have the strength in numbers that helps us to opt out. And I'm envisioning someday, right now in the Freedom Cell Network, we have over 22,000 people globally. Maybe it's more since the last time I checked. Here in Central Texas, we probably have 200 to 300 people that are participating. We definitely have over 200 in one of our chat groups. In Texas, there's hundreds and hundreds. There's people in Dallas, Fort Worth. There's people in Houston. There's people all over. So imagine now, let's say in Texas, there's like 1,000 people participating. Well, what if in about 2 years, maybe a year, let's go for a year. Let's go for before the end of this year, actually. We 10X that 1,000 number. We have 10,000 people now. And we have 2,000 people here in Central Texas. 2,000 people is a lot of people. We can do some cool stuff with 2,000 people. Let's imagine another year or two passes and we 10X again. And now we have 100,000 people in the state of Texas, right? Or we continue to go. There's plenty of people in Texas. We could have 1 million people. I don't know. There's a lot of like-minded people out there. And the government's the best player on our team because they're like totally exposing themselves as frauds. I've known it for a couple decades now, but a lot of people are like, oh yeah. Like my high school friends are like, so this is what you've been talking about for all these years. I see it now. So imagine when we have 10,000, 100,000 people, 1 million people, and we're just like, no, we're not going to participate anymore. We're not going to cooperate. We're not going to squat up and like go do paramilitary training in the woods. Although if that's your thing, by all means, we can go to the gun range. But that's not what this is about. This is about a peaceful transition from statism and control to freedom and peace and harmonious relationships. We don't need to have coercive institutions that dictate how we live our lives. So I would like to see, when we have a good number of people, we like send an ambassador to meet with the bureaucrats at the state legislature. And we're like, what is this transition going to look like? We have approximately 100,000 people that no longer want to fund their own oppression and instead want to use all of their capital towards building little schoolhouses and towards building gardens and supporting one another and doing whatever the heck we want to do, because it's our wealth and it's our lives, and we shouldn't have to be afraid if we mess up on our property tax or something, you know? So that's what I'm aiming for. I want total freedom, and I would love it if you guys came along with me. If you just want to come half of the way, that's cool too, right? We can go garden and stuff. But eventually, I don't know if it's going to be me or someone else, maybe an attorney. I want someone to go negotiate with the government and say, what is this going to look like? Because we're not participating anymore. So, yeah, that's right. All right. So that's the strategy that I'm aiming for. And it's all peaceful. So whatever, if anybody's spying or whatever, it's an open conspiracy. Let's talk about it. Nobody's storming the Capitol or anything. Okay, so we recently had the Greater Reset Activation 2. Who saw it or participated or was here? Woo! Some pretty faces that were in the audience here locally. So it was a great event. It was our second one. The idea is to counter the Great Reset. The Great Reset is the World Economic Forum's program to essentially reshape civilization and business and economics, and it's not cool. It's a technocracy, which is a form of governance where it's ruled by science and technocrats, and people don't have self-governance. It's no longer ruled by politicians, which isn't cool either. It's ruled by scientists. And it's slowly but surely coming into play. I mentioned ERCOT earlier. I saw an article where ERCOT was increasing the temperature on some of these smart thermostats. And I was like, whoa, that's pretty intense. You know, pretty soon, the way that they want things to go is to be more like the technocracy that's in China, where there's a social credit score and there's surveillance. And I was talking to my kids the other day about 1984. I don't know why it came up, but they're like, 1984, what's that, Dad? I was explaining to them about Winston and Big Brother and all this stuff. And I was like, the crazy thing is they talked about telescreens, a screen on the wall that monitored all your activities. This was even before television. But the ironic part now is everyone has a telescreen in their pocket. And wow, you know, so not sure where I was going with that. Lose my train of thought often, but that's okay. So the Greater Reset, that's right. China and surveillance, and that's what they're aiming for, this social credit score thing. And this whole environmentalism is a big part of it too, and this carbon tax and this, that, and the other. So we're not very far off from a reality. We're not going to experience that reality because we're going to opt out of it. But many people are going to experience reality where your social credit score gets lowered when you go over your monthly carbon allotment for your household. So maybe you didn't recycle as much as you should have, or you didn't have a Tesla car or whatever, I don't know. And then they lower your ability to do business or to travel or to go to purchase luxury items, I don't know. But the point is, that's what the Great Reset is aiming to do. So rather than just cry and moan and be a victim over that, many people are, we decided to empower people and offer alternatives and offer solutions. And if you haven't checked it out, or if you haven't had the opportunity to watch all of it, you can go to thegreaterreset.org, and check that out. And one of the cool things that we did here locally, there were 2 local official watch events in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, and in Buda, is we had all of these cool local activities going alongside it. I'm gonna bring up Rita, who we're here from a couple times. Rita has just been like totally killing it and crushing it, not only for the Greater Reset, but for free stuff. So, I thought it'd be cool if she recapped some of the cool local stuff that we did in addition to the event, the Greater Reset. She organized and folks organized all sorts of cool stuff. So Rita's gonna tell you about that.
Okay.
Give it up for Rita one more time, Rita!
So when John asked me to help with volunteering for the Greater Reset, I said, why don't we do some cool stuff? He was all on board with that because he wants there to always be room for there to be socialism. I mean, not socialism. Not right. Social activities, so that everyone can socialize. And so we started just brainstorming. So it wasn't just me. There was a bunch of people in the audience here that were helping. Crystal was a huge one. Cynthia also was working a number of days. There's people who are not here, but were there that helped out. So it was a total group effort. Raina for sure, and Nathan over here. And we just planned some dinners. We had a kickoff party on Monday, and John really wanted there to be a musical element to this. So we had bands on, gosh, we had it on Thursday and on Friday and on Saturday. Flew in some guys. Jordan Page came in and performed. Jimmy Page. Jimmy Page. I'm nervous, okay? Jimmy Vaughn.
Jimmy Vaughn, still really cool.
He came and they had this whole stage all set up with their whole Thunderbird stuff. And we did dinners every night. We had this really cool presentation by the guys at Zoe Market over there. So if you get a chance after this, go check them out. They actually spoke for about an hour or so to all of us and shared what they went through with being a business here in Texas that was standing up against mask mandates and things like that. There's, like always, people on Facebook and people were attacking them and they had a lot of haters. And they just decided to stand their ground. And then during the ice apocalypse, as a local business that offered food, they went out and provided food for the people in the community. And so they spoke about that and how they actually got one person really upset because they walked in and they saw that they weren't wearing masks, and so they went online and, you know, became this issue with the community here. But they overcame it and are now thriving and are going to be opening up a second section to their store over there that's going to be live music and I think like a bar restaurant kind of a thing, with some really cool combinations like flavors, because she's also a acupuncturist, and so they're incorporating kind of this healing vibe to everything that they're doing. What else did we have going on, John? We had the closing party at Indra's. I wasn't able to attend that, but I know that there was also some live music going on there. Really, it was about just getting people to not just sit and listen to a talking head, but have everyone come together. One thing that I heard repeatedly that week was how refreshing it was to hear from people who felt like they did, because so many of us have felt isolated, and especially if you are still on social media, like I know I just got completely off of it, not just because I was tired of the spying and the censorship, but also because I wanted to remember my friends the way I remembered them before this all happened, because there was starting to be so much just animosity between people, and people who I loved were suddenly doing things when I was scared for them. And, you know, so I got off of social media. So it was very isolating. So in all honesty, there was a lot of selfishness for me, even with wanting to put these together, because I'm like, I need people and we need to all get together. And I know that there's not just me, other people feel that way. And that was absolutely a theme. Like, people came off of that event and they were just like on cloud nine for a little while, because you just felt, I don't know, you just felt like you were connected. Exactly.
Wow.
You get it. Yeah. And it was really, it gave people a lot of hope too, because there were people who came in from all across the US, not a lot, but there were people from California, one guy from Missouri. There were some other folks that just flew in, and so it was nice to see. What? Colorado. Yeah, there was a whole crew from Colorado.
They were all stoned.
And so it was good to see that the conversations they were having in all of those places were exactly the same ones that we're having here. And of course, everybody wanted to move to Texas, I won't lie. They wanted specifically to move to Buda because they were like, this is such a cool town and they're not making us wear masks. We're like, go check out the rest of Texas. There's a lot of cool places in Texas. But it just spawned a lot of those kinds of conversations and a lot of hope. And it was something that I felt like I wanted us to do that all the time. Like, can't we just all live like that? So that was a really great opportunity for people to just get to know each other. And you know, everybody of course talks a little bit about their conspiracy theories on things, and everybody has their, I shouldn't say conspiracy theories because they're proven. They're theories. They're you know, known facts that other people will demonize us for saying these things. But we actually do dig into the science, most of us, and pay attention to people that are not just mainstream doctors and whatnot that have potentially been paid off for their whatever. I won't go into all that. But those types of conversations were happening
The
regularly.
YouTube feed just got cut off.
I know. So we just want to try and encourage that. So I just launched a series with John and the other administrators and stuff in the area, where we're going to be trying to do these skill shares, where kind of the idea of the Greater Reset was having these experts come in that John and Derek had curated to come and speak. Well, all of us are experts in some way, shape, or form. You might not even know it, but just by fact of like, I always have this, someone told me this one time, which is the teacher is only one chapter ahead of the student. And so sometimes the person who is just learning how to kill a chicken or something, like they know more than me who's never done one. And even all of their mistakes with doing it is lessons learned for me. So just having people speak like that about what they're learning, what they're doing as we go through this process of like what John's talking about. John over here is going to be speaking. Cynthia back there is going to be doing some stuff for us. So every week, we're starting this series where it's going to be every Wednesday, 8 o'clock Central Time. I'm putting together a schedule of all that and starting to tap on people in the audience, I'm sure, and say, hey, would you guys like to share this? And trying to keep my ear to the ground when they talk about something cool that they might not even realize that that's something that other people would really be interested in too. And so it's just going to be a little half an hour share with about a half an hour for discussion. So real short and sweet. But we're trying to keep it along the same themes of the stuff that John was talking about and stuff with the Greater Reset with like community, permaculture, wellness, preparation. You know, preparation doesn't necessarily just mean going to the shooting range, but just stuff like solar power or preparing for the ice apocalypse, or, you know, do you have your alternate forms of communication? Speaking of which, we have a mailing list that we just started, so if everybody could please sign on to that. So not everybody here is on Telegram, so that will give us another way to be able to reach out to people too. And anyway, just doing all of that to try and help foster a sense of community and everybody getting to, you know that we're all just one big family here trying to figure it out together.
Yes.
Rita's such a badass. Wow. What a valuable asset and person to have in our local community. So grateful for her. Like, wow. She like totally nailed the event too, the Greater Reset. It's like, can you help me with the event? She's like, sure. And then I was like, blah. She's like, sure, John, let's do it. She just nailed it. It was great. It wouldn't have been the same without her. So thank you, Rita. Okay, so the Freedom Cell Network. I just want to share a little bit about what it is and how the structure works. And then we're going to hear from some of the local organizers at the different cadres. And then we're going to hear about some of the different action-oriented cadres. And for folks that are watching, if you are in the Freedom Cell Network, or if you're thinking about joining a Freedom Cell, I wanted to share this with you so you could get some inspiration. Because like, man, the Central Texas group is really killing it lately. They're killing it over in Houston too, and other areas. Surprisingly, they're doing really cool stuff in Australia too, which is like total prison state right now. Has been for a while. Because originally it was like prisoners that were sitting there, right? So you think they would have been like learned something about value and freedom, or maybe they never really experienced it. I don't know, whatever. So for folks that are watching, kind of take some ideas, because a lot of people are like, I joined the Freedom Cell Network, but nobody wants to do anything. And they're back in that like victim complaining mode. Or some people are like, well, I joined the Freedom Cell Network and there's no one in my area. Some people are even like, what the hell, John and Derek? No one's in my area. And it's like, and then the first thing I say is like, well, then you got to step up. And now it sounds like you're the guy that's going to do the organizing and get stuff going. So we got a lot of stuff going in Central Texas. So I would encourage folks in other areas to emulate, to pick and choose some of the ideas that they like. So yeah. So the Freedom Cell Network, essentially it's like-minded individuals working together to achieve common goals and to find greater freedom in their lives, individually and collectively. It was an idea that started back in 2014, and it was, back then it was just me and one small group, and then the group fell apart because of some infighting. which is why I'm always super conscious about internal strife and conflict, make sure everyone's doing their self-reflection and being good, conscious human beings, not being a hater. I ain't got no time for haters in this group. So, and then it kind of went dormant, but I talked about it on podcasts and at some speeches. And then old Derek Bros was like, that's a great idea. And he like took it and ran with it and really helped to blow it up into this big thing. And they created the Freedom Cells website. And at the beginning of 2020, there was around 1,000 people. By the end of 2020, there was around 10,000 people. Can anyone guess what happened in 2020 that may have attracted people to an idea like this? Anybody? Anybody? Well, of course, COVID-19 and all the tyranny surrounding it really was like, people were like, wow, this is pretty hardcore. I've been thinking about this, reading these articles and watching these, what used to be YouTube videos. And I'm kind of worried now. So we presented people with something to do that's solutions oriented. So there's actually a structure in the Freedom Cell Network. And I'm excited about the structure because I geek out on this stuff. And but sometimes I think it's like a little bit too much and too complex, but I'm gonna share it with you anyway. So there's this structure and organizational makeup, right? When people are doing groups and building networks and organizations, there's oftentimes ways that this gets done that leads to fragility, and that leads to bottlenecks and leads to bureaucracy, especially when you have a centralized vertical institution. There's bureaucracy, there's control, there's like presidents and CEOs and stuff, right? Which is okay in some regards. But what's really resilient and gives everyone equal power is when you have a decentralized network. And that's what the Freedom Cell Network is. We organize horizontally like this, instead of organizing vertically, where you have like a president, or you have a Speaker of the House, and you have House members, and then you have all the people right here, right? Really have like corporations and secret society, roundtable people. And then you have the presidents and all that stuff. But that's all vertical, or a company, you have the board of directors, and you have the CEO, and then the management, and then the supervisors, and then all the employees. And that isn't like a harmonious thing, and it doesn't give people a sense of ownership, and it's hard for people to take things and make it their own and put their own little spin and mix on it. So we organize horizontally, and it works like this. It all centers around where the magic's at is what we call an inner cadre group, which is a small group of approximately 8 people. We choose the number 8 because research by this guy named Bob Podolsky, this libertarian guy, and also this guy named John David Garcia, they found through scientific analysis and research that 8 people is the optimal number of people for maximum creativity. This is whether you're creating a free society, or you're creating a new widget, or you're creating a lesson plan or a school or whatever. 8 people is the best number. If you have 12 or 14 or 15 people or 20, it starts to get a little bureaucratic and people aren't on the same page. If you have 2 or 4 people, then there's not enough people to come up with cool ideas and to execute things. So they found that 8 people is the optimal number. They also found that if you have 4 men and 4 women, that's optimal as well. So that's what we strive towards. It's hardly ever 8. Usually it's like 9 or 7 or whatever the heck. Maybe it's 4 or 12. It doesn't really matter. It's just something that we encourage. So you have these inner cadre groups. You get together with your group, you meet regularly, you're all on the same page, you share ideas, if there's an ice apocalypse, that's the first people that you call to make sure everyone's okay, and hopefully you can help support them. Work together on common goals. Rita was talking about preparedness, so you work together with your group. Hey guys, let's all set a goal of having 2 months worth of food storage. Used to say 2 weeks, and then COVID happened. I was like, wow, we got to tap into our food storage already. I didn't think that was going to happen anytime soon. And then the ice apocalypse happened. I was like, wow, good thing we got that spaghetti. So, me and my girlfriend actually were in a tiny home at the time, and we never lost power. We felt like all privileged and stuff. We're like, it's actually getting a little warm in here. So you work together, you have your food storage, maybe you get ham radio set up to link up. There's actually a ham radio group that we'll talk about here in a sec. I'm into firearms. Who's into firearms? Everybody into firearms? It's okay if you're not into firearms. That's okay. We talk about firearms, but I always give that caveat that you don't have to be into firearms. We actually had Dr. Mercola was going to participate in the first grader reset. And then on the website, on the front page of the Freedom Cells website, it said some goals we encourage are to have food storage, to have communication, and to have firearms to use. And he was like, you're going to get locked up because Joe Biden's going after domestic terrorists. And we're like, whoa. We went and changed the language and put it like, it's okay if you don't like guns. We're not like a militia or anything, okay? So, but I like guns. And so one thing you could do with your crew is buy guns together and chip in on ammo together and go shoot guns together, or not. Or you can take a jujitsu class together, or if you want to be a pacifist, that's cool too. I'll get your back. So those are some goals. Also to have a bug out plan, right? It could be a group bug out plan where maybe one of the 8 members has a ranch on the outskirts of town. Or maybe it's just like, hey, let's all make sure that you have your bug out plan. All right, let's go over it. Make sure this. One time I heard Jack Spirko talking about bug out plans, and he was like, he's with the Survival Podcast, and he like takes things really deep. And he's like, all right, so you have your bug out spot, but you also need to have a backup location in case you can't get to that one. You also have multiple routes to get to each one, and you drill those routes in case the authorities are there or there's a downed tree or something. And he's like, you gotta have backups and backups and backups. I'm like, damn, this is like a cryptocurrency wall or something. So I thought that was pretty cool. But those are just some goals. It doesn't have to be goals like that. It can be, hey, we got some goals where we're going to improve our spiritual health, and we're gonna get together and do yoga every Wednesday, or we are going to hold one another accountable to our self-improvement goals, or it can be entrepreneurial goals, like we all want to be filthy rich and we're going to go to this mastermind, or we're going to go to this conference or whatever. We're going to help each other with our business ideas. Or we have kids and we want to pull them out of public school, so we're going to work together to do a homeschool cooperative. Or every Friday the kids all go to this person's house so these other people can go on a date, that kind of thing. It could be whatever the heck you make of it, right? It could be gardening, whatever. So it's an intercadre group. And then the cool thing is you have your intercadre group and you link up with other intercadre groups. So you have intercadres, you link up with 7 other intercadres, so you have 8 small groups. It's never always like this, although maybe it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 more groups, come on guys. Probably are 2 other groups. And then that's what we call a middle cadre. So basically what we're working with here in Central Texas is what's called a middle cadre. There's more than 64 people. So you have 8 groups of 8, and then you have a middle cadre. And the cool thing is you can have your middle cadre and be connected and do meetings like this and do events and do social gatherings and do big skill shares and go work on people's properties. And you maintain the cohesion of the big group, but you still have your tighter knit group, right? And then it goes a step beyond that, and the middle cadres link up with other middle cadres. We have a big old middle cadre here in Central Texas. There's a big one in Dallas-Fort Worth. There's a big one in Houston, right? So we link up and we interconnect and we cooperate and we network with the other intercadres. We're doing a triangle because that's the Texas Triangle. In fact, there's this project called America 2050, and they aim to create super mega cities all along Dallas-Fort Worth, San Antonio, Houston. And like, that's kind of like the Agenda 21 thing where they bring everyone into the rural areas, and that's where they want to build with this intermodal transportation and stuff. Not gonna do it. That's Ross. Anybody remember Ross Perot?
Oh, yeah.
Or was that George Bush? That's Ross Perot. I'm really channeling Dana Carvey is what that was. Not gonna do it. Back when Saturday Night Live wasn't woke.
Right.
That's all weird. No, Elon Musk's gonna come on. Yeah, so you got we call that a meta cadre. So there's middle cadres, they link up into a meta cadre, right? And there's meta cadres all over, and then you link up all the middle cadres and we have a free society. That's what it's all about. But the cool thing about this structure is as we grow in numbers, we never grow vertically and create hierarchy. We continue to grow horizontally. There's this cool biological term called autopoiesis. And it's essentially like a self-replicating cell, right? Freedom cell. And so the cool thing is, imagine here in Central Texas, right now we have a middle cadre because there's a bunch of different intercadre groups. Well, as we continue to grow, each one of those inner cadre groups becomes a middle cadre. And now the Central Texas group becomes a meta cadre with a bunch of little middle cadres. And so we maintain that whole group. We're all one network, but we have this little structure. We have these little smaller groups that are more tight-knit and more connected with one another. So that's really what it's all about, and that's how the structure works, and that's that ability, because we're going to continue to grow. I forgot earlier, we had 1,000 people at the beginning of 2020, then we had 10,000 people, then we did the greater reset, and we went to 20,000. I think the pup wants to go to Erica. Can you check and see if she's still out there in the hall? She just walked in a second ago. We're going to hand the little cute little puppy, little piggy, and little piggy dog off to Erica. So that's what the structure is all about. Is that cool? Does everyone jive with what I'm saying? Sometimes I share all that. They're like, but all that doesn't matter. Just like with cryptocurrency, you don't have to learn that the inputs, and then you send the output, but it pulls from multiple different transactions, different inputs. I did this cryptocurrency course, and I think I went a little too deep. People are like, what the hell are you talking about? You don't have to understand all the intricacies. The important thing is let's link up with small groups and do cool stuff together. So now we are going to share about some of the smaller groups here in Central Texas. We're going to bring up some of the organizers and folks that are doing cool stuff. Rita made these. I think Marina printed them out. This is really cool. And I saw this and was like, wow, this is great. This is all really super cool for me because this was an idea I came up with several years ago. It's just like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could like do this thing? And now it's like, holy crap, it's a whole global thing, and wow, and there's all these cool people doing cool stuff. It's just really, really fulfilling and special. And when just looking at this makes me feel like clumped. Talk amongst yourself. That was another Saturday Night Live. Was that Dana Carvey? No, it was Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Easy, good. Okay, so who has Telegram? Cool. That's great. If you don't have Telegram, I strongly encourage you to download the app. It's not required. I'm not going to shame you if you don't. Okay? But you should. Okay? If not, that's cool too. So these have little QR codes. So you can scan the QR code and then it'll pull up the group and you can join the group. So we're going to have some of the folks that are organizing in these different areas come up and share a little bit about there's a West Austin group. Cool. So let's start by hearing from old Rita Quinn, because she is helping to organize the Williamson County group along with her hubby Val. So if you'll just come share if you guys do regular meetings or what some of the plans are. Sure.
So Williamson County is Cedar Park, Round Rock, Georgetown, Leander, Louisville, all that whole area over there. Some folks kind of cross over to the English country because that's also, especially some of the stuff to the west, it kind of, but technically the Georgetown County is those ones that I just said. And so I just put together a chat, just like everyone else, and said, hey, we're here, and we're going to get together. And people started just going on Telegram and finding us, and then we started talking, and it kind of evolved exactly the way that John just described it. We now have about, I was saying, 50 people in work. Not everyone's active, of course, because sometimes people just want to see what's going on. But we have done, we've gone to the first part together, to trade show, trade day down there. We've gone to shooting range together. We did dinners. There's one guy who is doing homesteading at his property. And in fact, tomorrow he's doing a chicken coop building, blitz, he's one of those people that kind of is on border. He's technically hill country, but he is north. Very, very far north compared to most of the people who are in the, oh, hello. Sorry, I forgot that we were doing that. And so it's, the borders on these groups are loose. Like I'm in many other people's groups as well. So just because I'm part of Wilco, we make friends all over. And so you end up kind of going into different groups, which is why we just recently put together the Freedom Cell Central Texas channel, where we can not get all that information lost, because sometimes I'll see a cool event in like the West Side or South Austin, and I'm like, shoot, that was like a week ago, and on that chat, it's long gone. I can't remember where that's at. So we tried to put together this new channel to just cull all of that type of information together in one place. But as far as Williamson County goes, I mean, we don't have any inner cadres yet or anything like that, because it's kind of more just like an open door for if you're in the area. I did go out and post it on the Freedom Cell website, so there are people who have found us that way. But for the most part, we're still just trying to kind of get to know one another and see if we align. One person in our group, which is kind of a little feather in our cap, and I keep telling people we've got a doctor in our group, like a full-on MD. And so he works at some of the urgent care clinics here in town. So whenever we've got questions, like especially with all the spike protein stuff and everything, we're like, hey, so what are you seeing? And is that real? And he helps keep us grounded, because he's in this world every day. And so he is not, real scared about stuff. He's kind of just like, I don't think there's things you need to be worried about. You just need to continue to, just focus on being free, and don't get caught up in all of the propaganda, and don't let those things disturb your sleep. Or because there's times I've messaged him late at night when I see some scary article, and he's like, the doctor. And so he's been really great at being able to just give us some peace of mind and answer some of those questions that we all kind of have right now with what's going on with, the jab and all that stuff. So you meet cool people like, Crystal, in your group, you've got permaculture people, and, so it's fun to cross-breed, so to speak, or that's not the right word, to cross-pollinate and, see what other people are doing in their groups, which is why it's great to have this more like central Texas meeting, so you can kind of see what other people are doing in their areas.
Cool. Can you share, is there anyone from the Hill Country group here? I think Vivi's watching along. Barcelona Loca. That sounds like her. Can you share a little bit about what they're doing there, just from your understanding? I'm looking at you, Rita.
Me.
Sorry. Carol's like, me? What? I'm in Bastrop. Yeah, if you're familiar.
Oh, gosh. Those guys are kicking butt. They have.
Vivi's just a beast.
Yeah. They're starting a community garden. She just made a chat that is on what John was holding up that has all the QR codes. It's a garden chat for their area. She has a really big vision about that, because she wants it to be something that is very supportive of the community in case people need food later. And so she's really looking at it not just as something for just their little hill country area, although she does tap on the guys in the hill country to go out there and help do things. You just attended her thing last weekend. You could probably speak about that.
Yes, it's behind a restaurant, and they're letting them use the water. And yeah, she plans on, her husband is an architect, so they're going to make it beautiful. The compost bins, and yeah, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Cool. Well, Vivi is someone that, because somebody was complaining in the Texas Freedom Cell Network group, no offense if you're watching, but they were like, no one's in my area. I don't know if that's the tone that they took, but that's what I heard in my head when I read what they said. That was a rhyme like Dr. Seuss. Vivi was like, hey, well, when I started the Hill Country group, there was no one in the group. Now there's over 100 people. So oftentimes it just takes one person to build it, right? And you remember Kevin Costner's Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. So what I do is be like, hey, we built a cell, and then people will just come out of the woodwork. So Vivi and several others are really doing a lot of cool stuff. She is watching. It's Barcelona Loca, which I think is a very great handle. So Vivi is doing great, and she is in the Hill Country group. And so we're going to have these here at the table. If you're in one of these areas, then you can scan and join the group, and that's what it's all about. And if there isn't a group in your area, we strongly encourage you, not required, we strongly encourage you to be that leader, be the change you wish to see in the world. And You know, the cool thing about the Freedom Cell Network is it presents an opportunity for folks to step out of their comfort zone. Because there's so many people, especially in this movement, that consider themselves introverts and that shy away from leading or public speaking, like myself. And they feel nervous about that and anxious about that. Well, this is a great opportunity because everyone's so laid back and non-judgmental and just super cool and chill to just kind of, you know, step out of your comfort zone. And when you do that, and when you start doing cool stuff and you're hosting meetings and building gardens and stuff, you may find that that newfound extrovertedness can spill over into other areas of your life. Maybe you're more assertive with your boss now when he's talking crap to you. Or maybe stand up to your significant other for the first time now because you feel empowered. Whatever. All right, so yes.
Can you talk about like when somebody wanted to start through your cell, and what does that look like? What are the steps?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So if someone wanted to start a cell group, right, you can create a group on Telegram. Go to Telegram, click on the three little bars, go to new group, make it a private group, and then make sure the chat history is visible for people that join the group. And then you take the link and you just share the link to me or to the main Freedom Cell Network Telegram group. And you say, hey, I just started a new group. And then we'll make sure it gets on the Freedom Cells directory, right? So now you have a Telegram group. And then also go to freedomcells.org. Who's all on the website, freedomcells.org, okay? If you're not on the website, I strongly encourage you to go to freedomcells.org. You can register there. You can put your address or an address of the park down the road or the coffee shop down the road. I encourage people not to put their residence, but put somewhere near your residence. And then there's like a little flag on a map. Really cool to see the map. The map was always inspirational to see how many flags there were. Now we can't view all the flags at once because it like slows the website down. So we have to see like 50 or to 100 at a time, which is really cool. So then you can see people around you, and you can also make a cell on the website. And then once you have a cell there and on Telegram, then you can start saying, hey guys, in 2 weeks, it's always good to give at least 2 weeks time. We're hosting an informal meetup at the coffee shop, at the bowling alley. If you want to do it at your house, that's cool too, but you're inviting the public. And then that's it. And you start hosting meetings. It's cool too to like do cool stuff. Like we're going to this permaculture demonstration and we're all gonna go do something together, or we're going bowling, right? Or we're just going to a restaurant to happy hour or something like that. And then it just all goes from there. But oftentimes it takes one person to lead and to set those meetings, and then things kind of blossom and take on a life of its own. Also, you create a group for your area, right? So like the Hill Country group, it's got 100 people. The Central Texas group has over 200 people. And the thing to do is you have an area with 20, 40, 100 people. And then if you're in that group, you start looking for people that you might want to build an inner cadre with. So you're like, oh, you're here at this meeting right now and you're chatting with someone when we're networking and stuff. And you're like, this person seems cool. They have kids, I have kids. We're into this, we're into that, whatever. And then you ask them, hey, do you want to do an inner cadre group? And it's cool too, like you can experiment with folks, and if you don't end up jiving, then I strongly encourage you to set a boundary or to say, you know what, honestly, I'm not sure this is gonna work. I'm breaking up with you. Can't have you in my inner cadre group anymore. And that's okay too. So that's what I would encourage you to do. And then in a second, it's not just the regional groups, which are cool, but we also have these action-oriented groups. If you're passionate about something, we're gonna talk about those too in a sec. Crystal, do you want to share about the South Austin group? Because you guys got a lot of cool stuff going on down there.
Come on down.
Hi. So yeah, I started the South Austin group. I think we were like one of the first groups, and I didn't know what I was doing, and you know, no one was really out there, but I just stuck with it, and now all kinds of stuff happens, and I don't know, it's really cool. So yeah, we're really active. We meet every other week on Wednesdays at Cosmic Coffee, if anyone wants to come by. And we have projects. We have a community garden that we do, and we go every week, twice a week out there. And we're even having a party tomorrow, harvesting party, and we're having refreshments and stuff. So we do fun stuff like that. And we started it because the freeze, we were trying to get in on a CSA, a farm CSA, to like buy produce from them, but after the freeze, everyone was wiped out. So I was like, why don't we just do our own? And then everyone jumped in to help me and just like made it happen like it was amazing. So that's really cool. And then we're also doing a beef share, like where we buy a cow together. Anyone in Central Texas can do that. So yeah, so we do that, and I'm down to do whatever anyone else wants to do. Those are just a few things, but yeah, whatever anybody wants to do, like I say, let's do it. So yeah, so that's it.
I think it's cool that she's like, I didn't know what I was doing. You know, none of us know what we're doing. We've never built a free society before. It's our first time. You know. Carol, do you want to share a little bit about your aspirations with the Bastrop group? Come on, I'm in Bastrop. Let's do it together. Wait, first I want to thank Carol for the amazing spread over there on the floor. Very nice. And the cool shirt.
Oh, yeah, I know. Texas.
Yeah.
Well, aspirations was the correct word because I've been a lame leader. I promise I will try to be better, but, you know, get people to join and have meetups. So it's Bastrop Fayette County. So if anyone is from there, join the group. Yeah.
What cities are in Fayette County?
LaGrange.
LaGrange.
Yeah.
There's a guy, actually, a cool story. I bought a 0-point mower. Never used one before. Don't know what I'm doing, but I figured it out, right? And a barbecue pit from Home Depot. And I was so anxious to have, they were delivering it later on. And I was having my family over for my birthday. And I didn't want to wait until Monday because we're having people over on Sunday. And I had to mow and stuff. And so I posted in the Freedom Cell Network, hey, does anyone have a trailer? They could help. And this guy, I didn't know him from LaGrange, Brandon,
Yeah.
he's like, oh, I'll help you out. And so he helped me out. And I was like, I was going to give him some money. Here's $100 for your time and for gas. He's like, no, just pay it forward. That's what it's all about, right? And I was like, yeah.
He's
So
a good guy.
yeah, he's a good piece. He's building barn dominiums and stuff. So we have all these builders in the community. It's super cool. Building free societies, building barn dominiums, schools, barn raisins.
Well, he has a little establishment in LaGrange where he has people meet and sells beef, you know, grass-fed beef,
Cool.
all these other things.
Let's go
It's like
check him out. Do a
Paris.
meeting
Yeah,
over there.
yeah.
Cool. All right, thanks, Carol. Okay, Morena, do you want to share about St. Marcus, what y'all are doing down there?
Yeah.
Get it for Morena!
It's not that much to share. We just, so I was looking at the map. The map's really awesome, you know, and there wasn't any people in my area. So I was like, oh, there's nobody in my area, you know, just like John was talking about. And then towards the end, or the end of the year-long, whatever was that happened, I was like, let me pop back in there and see. And there was so many people in the area. So I thought, okay, I am making a group, you know, I'm starting the cell. So I started the cell, and then I had just met, I don't know how I ended up with meeting everybody for the greater reset, but I did. And so I ended up on Telegram. And so I put the link out there, and I was like, hey guys, I started a group, San Marcos, Wimberley, New Braunfels, just kind of that random area, like over there, you know, Hays County mainly. And there was a Telegram group already, and there was a few people in there, but they weren't doing anything, I guess. They were just on Telegram. So I went in there, and I was like, okay, let's meet. So we met, and 2 weeks ago, we had our first meeting. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago, and then today we were going to have our second meeting. And then, of course, this John came up with this event, and I was like, okay, well, this can be our second meeting. But basically what we did is we just met up, and we got to, you know, meet each other face to face and see who these people are that are on Telegram, you know. And we talked about what each person, so we kind of ended up like, Mark was there, and I think you're the only one here that was in the group. I don't think anybody else is here, but basically we just ended up doing, okay, let's make a list of our interests and maybe our skills. So then we can just kind of go from there and see like, okay, do we have people here that we have one guy, he's a ham radio guy, and he can also build solar power generators. Can just build them, I guess. So that's a thing I did not know. So we have a guy, I know a guy. And and so we just basically discussed that, and we're just gonna go with it. So it's not very hard. It's just like, hey, let's just go meet. We met, and now we're just gonna continue meeting, and then hopefully the group's gonna grow. We even discussed like, okay, maybe we can put like a receiver for the ham radio on the hill, and then like we can connect up to this many miles and all that. So I don't know all that stuff, but the guy knows. And so, I see a lot of, cool stuff like that in the future, maybe a garden. What I'm doing right now personally is getting this list of interests and this list of skills and trying to see, what can we, put together in the near future, and also following other groups. For example, Crystals, their garden is, so I don't know, we have to have a garden. So that's gotta be a thing. And then, I don't know, we'll just add to that as more people hopefully find us. I know there's people around, like for me, I didn't really feel the urgency to be in these type of groups and like go out there and find connections, because like when we were talking about it, like a lot of people felt kind of alone, but we just, I guess, got lucky that we have a lot of friends already around that were like-minded throughout the whole pandemic. Like my friend Quentin back there, and so I dragged them into this thing, Anyway, so it wasn't like I didn't feel the urgency, but I know a lot of people do. And so when we met all these people at the Greater Reset, it was like that. Oh my gosh, I'm glad I found like-minded people. So anyway, I think we're going in the right direction. And also, I don't know what I'm doing, but we're just doing it. So that's it.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thank you.
Is there someone to represent the West Austin group? Come on. Is there BMW parked up front? I love West Austin.
It's an electric BMW.
What's that?
It's an electric BMW.
All right, so there's a West Austin group apparently, so that's cool. Okay, cool. Who's feeling inspired to create a group for their area? What do you got? No, but there is now. Yeah. Okay, so if you happen to be in one of these areas, but you're not part of the group, then this will be sitting over there. You can scan the QR code and tap into the group. Then we need to collect a DNA sample, identification, stool sample for Greg Abbott's desk. No, okay, so those are the inner cadre groups essentially. But I mean, if they have 100 people, then essentially it's a middle cadre group. And the thing to do in the groups that have a bunch of people is to encourage the folks in the group to form up into the inner cadre groups. But, at the end of the day, none of that even matters. What we're doing, if you're like, we got a group of 100 people, we're doing stuff, that's what's important. It doesn't have to be like this structure, this, whatever. Although it would be cool. Once we expand this out and scale this out, you got something, Erica? Did you raise your hand?
Did I do something?
Yeah.
Oh, what are you saying? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. She's just being fabulous over there.
We were bidding at the auction.
As we expand this out, I have aspirations to implement a consensus-based decision-making mechanism, right? Right now, it's like smaller scale. It's a couple hundred people. There's like 40 people in this room right now. We could make a decision by just having a conversation. But if we had 10,000 people or 100,000 people, 2.5 million people globally or across a region, there's an importance in being able to make decisions together. Like, should we pool our resources and create a health share so we can opt out of this scam medical insurance program? It was a scam before Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act. Now it's even more of a scam. So what the hell is this? This is ridiculous. So it's like we opt out of that, but we have a health insurance, health share thing. Well, I do a health share now. It's called Zion Health Share. I pay $205 a month. And if there's an emergency, I pay up to $1,000 out of pocket and everything else is covered. So I don't go to a primary care doctor or anything like that. So it's a good thing for me, right? And then if you do go to a primary care doctor regularly, we'll just go to Rita's doctor, right? And we can pay out of pocket or come up with some sort of co-op, I don't know. Another thing is like, what if we want to pool our resources and buy this piece of land and like Some people can live there. We can build an event space. We can build a shooting range. We can build community gardens. Let's vote on whether or not to do this. Another thing that I would like to do eventually is we all reach a decision and we're like, why don't we pull our money together and hire a private security force to protect us from private criminals and public criminals. So whenever we exit, we're like, yeah, we're exiting. Now we have a security force that protects our properties from the property tax man that's trying to come take it away. That's where I'm going with a lot of the stuff. So again, you can come with me all the way over here to extremism, or you can kind of be a moderate and just get your hands in the garden. Either way it works. Erica does have something now.
I would call that just a free market model that when it comes to consensus, it has to be either a more universal type of thing or something only specific to a group.
Yep.
So like a free market model without the parasite set off. So, you know, we're not having to rebuild the world. We just need to shake off the fleas and do what we're doing.
Yeah, yeah, and it could work where like, okay, only these groups decide they want to do that, so only those groups fund it.
Yeah, it's only specific to what they're doing,
Yeah.
you know, locally, whatever, so.
But we can all still jam together, even if we don't all agree on A or B, maybe we do on C.
Health insurance, you see, that's another voluntary thing,
Yeah.
choose to partake in that or not, which is absolutely right on.
We'll do it. All right, cool. So let's talk about the different action groups. So there's cadres that are doing like action-oriented things real quick. So we have a perma-blitz group, which is super cool. And the idea is like we just go build stuff on each other's properties and on people's backyards. Does anyone want to share about the perma-blitz group? Anyone? Rita? Come on, Rita. You gotta come up here though, because people are like, we can't hear anything now. It sounds like she's drowning underwater.
Pioneers were, you know, farmers.
Yeah.
Raise a barn, and pick up the children under.
It's exactly like that. And we have some that are planned already.
Once tomorrow. Once tomorrow. So the Perma Blitz group was yours?
Stuff. And then for a while it was just like, not much is going on. And then Rita came along. Gotta get that.
So the Perma Blitz group is exactly like what Erica was just saying. The idea is all of us pitching together with the community gardens. And so actually last weekend when Vivi had her harvesting over at, forget the name of that place, Sweet Road, yeah, out near Fredericksburg. Anyway, they have a location out there with their garden, which Carol spoke about earlier. That was like our first Perma Blitz, so to speak. And so folks went over there. Carol brought your little broad fork to show people how to do no-till tilling. And yeah, which now we're all, so you get a discount if you buy more than one or more than two. So now there's groups of people that are like, okay, sign me up. There's like 4 of us that are all talking about getting them so we can get the discount. And another part of this, something that John had mentioned before too, was that when we're in community like this, when it comes to like agriculture, like some of those things are really expensive, you know, a tractor is like $7 grand or whatever. So instead of each of us buying those things, we can work as a cooperative and work together on, okay, so-and-so needs to have this thing, you know, make rows or whatever, and we can bring our tools and we can share and then take those things to someone else's place and do the same thing. But the idea is a blitz, like one day or one weekend, you go in there, you crank it out, all of us doing one garden as opposed to one person trying to do it over a whole season. You know, we can do all of our gardens over the whole season if we all just work together. So that's kind of the mindset of what we're trying to do with that. So we're just getting kicked off. There's a guy who is building his chicken coop tomorrow. So if anyone is interested in that, I know Crystal's got an awesome thing down in South Austin going on too. His is up in North Austin. So bring a hammer and a drill. He's needing help with the chickens. He just hatched a bunch of guinea, I think. He just hatched like 12 of them or something. So he's got a whole working thing down there. He's even showed me pictures of them, like, I don't know, doing some meat processing. I'm trying to learn the language of what all of this is. So he showed me pictures that were a little bit more graphic than I'm used to. I have to kind of get past the idea of actually using things for meat as opposed to just like getting some eggs from him. But he's moving into that realm, and he's actually going to be speaking in one of our skill shares because him and his wife were from Venezuela, so they are very conscious of what could be a worst case scenario. So he is seeing that type of thing happening here, and they are just like on it. They bought the land, they bought the sheep, they're hatching chickens, so they're really moving forward with this in a very real way. So my dog is pulling for those on the camera. I think that's it. Oh, okay, I can share about the fairness group on here. That's another group that I kind of ended up getting involved in because my husband and I were in an RV for 3 years, and we had the idea of traveling, and that was definitely a big motivation for it, is that we wanted to travel. I was a professional photographer and we wanted to do all that, but there was this kind of undercurrent also of being aware of all of this. We also wanted something that was really self-sustaining for us. So we started learning about solar and getting your own water and just living off grid, so to speak, which you can do really easily in an RV. And so because of that, we just got interested in the general topic of preparedness. So we started a freedom cell, like what would you call an action freedom cell. And that, yes?
Is that like an off-grid technology?
No, there is one of those too, though.
There is one?
There is one of those, yeah. This one is just more generic, and so people are talking about preparing for natural disasters, preparing bug out bags. There's someone who just recently posted something about wanting to do a whole weekend preparedness thing where people go up north and pretend that you have no, kind of like Survivor, like go up north, be there for a day, start your own fire, forage for your own food.
Know each other out there.
Hopefully not that part. And yeah, just going up there and practicing your survival skills and preparing to do that. And then the next day was going to be a recap, what did we learn, and having some people talk. So that's something that it just has like a lot of these, they have a life of their own. People, there isn't, like, just because you're an admin, it just means you're the one that says, hey, I'll start the group, but then everyone else contributes, and there isn't really a leadership in that sense. It's really just about providing the forum and the voice for people to talk, and maybe making sure that things are kind of still alive there, because sometimes these things can get dormant, which is how I started this one, is that there was actually another preparedness one, and then the admin just left the group. And but he didn't give it to anyone else. And so there was about 4 of us that were still active in the group, and they were like, there is no admin, because it started getting overwhelmed with spam, which is one of the things that sucks about Telegram. So,
Jones just joined Telegram. Trump's got this gold coin and he's trying to.
Exactly, yeah, the gold coin, that was a big one.
Crazy.
It's true. And there's a lot of kind of spammy crypto stuff. So that group just got overwhelmed. And so a few of us were like, well, let's just make our own group, and we'll tell all these same people that were over here that are interested, and we'll just restart it up. And so that's the only reason why I ended up becoming an admin of that one. So it's just an idea of what do you do in case of an emergency. And that leads into the ham radio one, which we're probably going to talk about now. So Erica.
Can you post the link to the off-grid technology group? I didn't know about that one.
I can. I don't know it off the top of my head. I don't know how active it is.
Is it in the directory?
I think it might be. One of the guys in my Williamson County group is the one who started it.
Oh, cool.
And his name is, his handle is Free Nelly. And so he's really all about technology. So he helped a bunch of people in our group actually get decentralized phones and stuff like that.
Some of it, the technology is pretty simple, but having a market offer on a finished product, for example, condensation, water, if you want to do some redundancy in water, so rainwater collection, but also we're damn humid. So you can capture that, and I've been looking at that for years, so we're getting closer, I don't know lately. But yeah, we literally can live off grid now, where just 10 and 20 years ago was just a thought, mostly.
Yep.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the ham radio group was one started by my husband because he had a passion for that. He's an off-roader, and so he would just do ham radio with other guys that were off-roading. And then there was a couple of emergencies that happened when we finally bought a house and settled down in Georgetown from living on the road. And so he got on the ham radio and discovered that there was a little group of people in Georgetown that would share kind of like eye on the ground when there was a tornado, or there was like during the ice apocalypse, they would tell us the water is needing to be boiled now, but none of us had any power or any internet, so we didn't know that. So we learned about things through the ham radio network. So he got really passionate about wanting to try and build a group where not only were you showing and teaching other people how to start using their ham radio, but eventually, kind of like Marina's her guy was saying, putting together groups where we can all also have our own little network. And during, depending on how far you are with the whole shit hit the fan kind of thing, knowing that we can reach out to one another and share resources and have a way to communicate that is not connected to the internet or phones, or, things go down, we can, talk on ham radio. So that's a good group too.
Hey Rita, can you share about the Health Freedom Group?
So then there's also another group that's the Health Freedom Group. Because of 2020 and 2021, there's a lot of health stuff. In fact, that's one of the challenges with that group, actually, because it could be very COVID-centric. People start sharing all kinds of concerns and fears about that, when really the idea was to kind of create a directory where we could turn to alternative health professionals that are in our community. That was the original intent, and I started to make like a little directory of, as we found different practitioners, whether they're Reiki healers or they're chiropractors or they're dentists or whatever, and we were trying to create a way for us to have a resource that way so that we could go to those people and not have to wear a mask or not worry about shedding or any of that kind of stuff. But it's also just a lot of discussion, which happens in these groups, and you can learn a lot from that as well, because there are people in there who are experts. So they'll chime in every now and again and just say, well, this is what I'm seeing, or this is, like right now, I'm on a heavy metal detox that I learned from people in that group. I'm sure I could have Googled it or whatever, although I don't Google things anymore. What?
Listen to classical now.
Sorry.
Come on.
Yeah, there's a lot in there that's very useful information, but it can also get overwhelming because it's a big group. So, and there's a lot of passion around that topic, of course. So sometimes it can be a little off-putting because there's just so much stuff in there. But it's good to go in there and just know that you're talking with people who are interested in that topic of health and healing and wellness. And again, with the skill shares, that's where I'm kind of pulling some people in that I know that have shared really great things, and that, hey, I'd love to give you a forum to be able to speak for a little longer about this to people, and let's record it and share it. So, yes, Erica.
Quick question. Doesn't Telegram have a way that you could save a particular post?
Yeah, it's called pinning. Is that what you're referring to? Where you pin it like to the top, or do you mean like save it?
Oh,
I have that too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You can forward from one group, so if you have a little saved group, that's good.
So you have a saved group that's just.
Yeah, same thing. I have one that just says saved messages, and so when I see something, I just send it to myself that way.
Thank you.
Clever. Cool.
Anything else?
That's it. Wow. Thanks, Rita. Give it up for Rita. We just got fans on the live stream now. But none of them are as big a fan as I am.
VB has a Hill Country Garden group here for their local community garden also. If you're near Hill Country or you want to go check out what they're doing, she's really leading by example in major ways. And some of these groups are like global groups, so anybody can, it's just like for everyone in the Freedom Cell network. And then some of them are local groups. Oh, I didn't forget about that. I did not forget about that. And then the cool thing too, like with the Freedom Cell model, if you have a big group that gets overwhelming, then you can break it down into smaller topics. So you have a health freedom metacadre, and then you break it down into a COVID group or a detox group or a vaccine recovery group or whatever. Patricia, if you go to my YouTube channel later, somebody asked to get in contact with you to do what you're doing. So it's on my YouTube channel on this video. You can just go through the comments and then you'll have to click on that person and message them through YouTube, I guess. Unless they want to join the Freedom Cell network and message me directly, and then I'll make sure that it gets to Patricia. Networking, baby. Yeah, okay. All right, and last but certainly not least, there's an intentional communities group. And one of the things I have a vision for is to create what we've been calling the Confederation of Intentional Communities. So there's like different communities already in Central Texas. Erica has an amazingly beautiful property that she wants to build a community out there. There's Bill Worsham just walked in the room, perfect timing. Bill wants to do communities too. And the idea is we like get out of the smart cities and we create our own intentional communities and eco villages, and then we link them up with a confederation like the Hanseatic League, where it was like city states and little places, and they all linked up for mutual defense and for trading. And we like trade amongst ourselves, and we hang out, and we do agoras, and we work with each other, and we grow food together. That's something that I think would be really cool, and it's a great practical way to get from here to there. We do have a Central Texas Land Co-op group that's super active, and we've had meetings. We've invited experts to speak on stuff. And I have Crystal come up and share about that group. That's super groovy, and we'd love for you guys to join us doing that. Intentional community. Everybody wants to do it. Let's do it.
So the goal for me and for a lot of people, I think in the end is land ownership. So we can really like do what we want, right? And so we have made a group where we meet and we talk about removing barriers to land ownership. So we've like had realtors come talk to us. We're having a real estate attorney. A lot of things have come up, you know, just like whatever comes up, we try to like throw it out. I've learned so much, but what else do we talk about?
We talk more about condo associations.
Oh yeah, legal entities, like the difference between a co-op and a condo association, and just so all kinds of stuff. And we're actually having a conference here, I believe, in late September, where we're gonna have a whole bunch of speakers come, and it's going to be kind of like the Greater Reset, but it's going to be all about land, buying land and what to do with it, and you know how to design it and everything like that. So that should be really cool. Look out for that. Someday. Yeah. So that's what we're doing with that. And we meet like every couple of months. So join the group on Telegram, and yeah, check it out. Yes, there's also, I'm trying to put together a business directory for like members. Whatever your business is, email me. And so, because we want to have a searchable directory soon, so that if I need, I don't know, I want to buy some eggs, I go to like you, I don't go to like the grocery store. We want to use each other's like businesses and services and stuff like that. So we don't have that many. Do what?
Keep in the family.
Yeah, so we don't have many right now, but you can email FC Business Directory at CTemplar. I'll post it somewhere, but or email me or message me, Wildcat. So
Cool, thank you. Cool.
We started.
Let's go scamming
Yeah. Yeah, so we reached out to a local rancher to, buy locally. And so we're going in together to buy cows, and they're gonna, give us a bunch of meat, and we're gonna, this is the first time we are doing it, so I don't know how often. We sold out the first one in like a few hours, so we'll just see how much interest there is. So if you would rather, especially with the shortage, people think it's about to happen, it's good to have a relationship with somebody local and get in with them now, because sometimes when stuff happens, like during the freeze, they're like, we're not taking new customers, and so we want to get in with them now and just develop a relationship with them and use them, going forward. So I encourage, if you want to participate. So there's two, if anybody has a better idea, please let me know. One's a Waterston Ranch, is the one we're using now, and then there's one for chicken and eggs, and they have beef too, but it's like way more expensive, but I don't remember the name of them, but all of them are like grass-fed, organic, like come from sustainable farms, so they're like great resources, but yeah. If you message me, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And as it grows, we can expand for this region, that's this range, we can bring the ranchers and farmers into the group, and they can offer whatever.
Hey, do you want to plug your business also?
Oh, yeah, okay, I started a business called Eco Food Gardens, and we install vegetable gardens of all kinds. We focus on hydroponic, vertical, safe space saving, urban, all of that, so whatever kind of vegetable garden need you have, let us know. Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want. Whatever you want.
Okay, John, do you want to share about your Akasha group? Yeah. Come on up. Give it up for John.
All right.
John. Well, I almost passed out on the way here. I think I have a hernia actually showing up here. So I was like, oh, that's a good thing. Let me research it. Oh, really? Yeah. I don't want to deal with it, but let me get back here. Everybody. Give a hernia, everybody. So Akasha, so it's not Akasha, it's Akasha, ACSLA. So it stands for Akasha Communities and School for the Living Arts. So it's a group, it's a concept that I've had for a long time. My passion is really, I've got a lot, so I'm trying to refine those things, but it really starts in creativity. And basically, what I've noticed is a real crisis of imagination in this civilization, in this culture in particular. It's like, oh, there's only this party, or only these parameters, and all of these things have been sort of hemmed in for us. The conversations parameters have already been articulated, and so we have those choices. We sort of pick from the thing that's already been like handed to us. And as an artist, somebody who spent his life in the creative world, as a musician, a filmmaker, a photographer, a writer, a travel writer, doing all kinds of just creative outputs, I've realized like there are so many unexplored possibilities within the architecture of even just building a building, just the basics of building a building that's on a subconscious level supportive of our biome, right? Whether that's building with non-toxic materials, whether that's building with not 90-degree angles, the corners where things get sucked into, right? Whether it's building open spaces as opposed to having the little, boxes separating everything. And what I noticed even when we got into the house that we're currently in is that if you look at the architecture from, say, the 50s, where everything is very much generally in its own little compartment, right? Its own sort of little quarantined area, versus more modern architecture where everything is much more open. You see that reflected in how people lived in that day. Like their own interior world was very much in its little compartment, right? So it's like if you had some deviancy or something going on, you put it over here, but then otherwise you're a stalwart good leader and it's like, so now there's this real openness and like just being transparent and sort of fully integrated in all of those systems. So I'm looking at systems and getting people on board who think about how the land is developed. So Paolo Solari, who was a visionary architect and designer, one of the people that we're working with, or a group that we're working with down in Mexico, works with sacred geometry, and so they design around sacred geometry, the architecture itself, but not just the architecture, but also, again, the materials, the design of the overall space, so the entirety of the space, the purpose of the space, right? The purpose that the people bring to it, the personalities, the topography, the movement of the sun and the moon and the winds and all of these things like factored in, because these are really fundamental, foundational things that affect us on a subconscious level that we're not aware of because we're not really paying attention to these things, because what's the most valuable thing that we have? Time, right? And what's the thing that the matrix is constantly trying to extract from us? Our time, right? So looking at the ways that the hooks are in us and finding ways to extract those hooks by way of, you know, how are we getting our food, right? If any of us, if the whole thing shut down now, where's your food coming from? Anybody? You know, a handful of people maybe have a few vegetables to rock for a couple of days. You know, maybe, I mean, I was immediately during the snowpocalypse, like looking for squirrels and like getting my belly down. Because I was just like, there's enough squirrels in this neighborhood. I can go for a while, you know. So now I got a crossbow, so dogs, cats, those are all but yeah, so it's really analyzing our actual situation, because a lot of the stuff gets very theoretical, right? And it's really easy to just like, hey, I got some land, just put a bunch of boxes on it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, you can do that too, right? But if we start with a concept, you have to have a blueprint, right? It's like you don't, I mean, we have some builders in here. If you start without a set of blueprints to know where you're going with this thing, you're setting yourself up, I think, for a very subpar experience. So yes, it takes more conscientiousness. Yes, there's more sort of factoring in a lot of the elements, but I think that the end product that you'll get is so much more supportive of what it is that we're all, I think, trying to create. And really that thing, oddly enough, is a very simple thing, which is our time. Like I use in marketing, so I use this phrase, it's like the most good for the most people most of the time. And when I say that as it contains to your personal community. Like, I ain't trying to save everybody out there. Like, y'all do what you want to do. But like within my sphere, it's like the most good for the most people most of the time. And what does that mean? It means like when you get up in the morning, you're really participating voluntarily in the activities of your day. You're not just like, oh, you know, coming from a single mom household in a small town with like no money, it was just like, okay, mom's got to go to work. I'm a latchkey kid. Like, I'm just like, surely this is not the apex of civilization. Like, surely we can do better than this, right? This thing that we've created where parents leave their kids and, you know, spouses fight about the money and the things and da-da-da. And I just was like, sucks. Like, and so but I've had in my lifespan the opportunity to visit and explore. We went down to Costa Rica. I visited different communal places overseas in Australia, and so things at different structures. I've studied them for over a decade. Ones that have existed, like Oroville in India, for many, many years. Zeg in Germany, Demenauer, which is recognized as a federation by the Italian government. So these aren't things that are just wishful thinking. These are things that exist, and so I'm really passionate about extracting the best elements of all of those things and integrating those into a series like John was talking about, like federated communities, basically like connected, pods with different values, more or less. I think when it comes to our survival, we all understand that there's some convergence, meaning ain't nobody here gonna get away with not eating for the next month, probably. Or having clean water, or having a structure over your head. So it's like these foundational things are things we can all agree on. And doing that is harmoniously with each other and the land is probably next level that we can agree on. So it's like we get those foundational things sorted out, all our personal interests can be whatever they are, right? But it's like if you get these core things really sorted out, that allows you to create an industry, so to speak, an economy within those little ecosystems that actually support the people who are there. The work, the livelihood, the day-to-day, the play, those are all integrated as opposed to segregated. Like, okay, we get in our car, we drive over here to do the dance thing. We get in our car, we go over here and do the work thing. It's like, what are we doing? Why are we doing all that? It's like not efficient and it's not fun. Like, and anybody who drives in Austin traffic knows it's not fun. So that's what this group is about. So we have a group on Telegram, so it's ACSLA, and you're welcome to join. We're basically having people come and speak via Zoom. We're doing meetings at our house. We'll sort of include a lot of the, well, as it grows, we'll do woo things. We did a potluck. We're gonna do a little gong meditation, little singing bowl things, and some cacao and some kratom. And yeah, so that's the jive. Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
We should invite him to speak at our Intentional Communities Conference. I said we should invite you to speak at our Intentional Communities Conference. That's gonna be in September. So I can raise your hand if you would like to live on an intentional community or eco village with like-minded people. Wow. Raise your hand if you do right now. Okay, cool. All right. So there's a gap there. Let's work together to close the gap. Right? There's folks that have property already that are looking for people. There's folks that want to go on a property and do stuff. So I strongly invite you to join all of the groups we've talked about, but the land co-op group, you can scan it right here. And it's just a bunch of people. Some of the people will do a property together. Some of the people are just sharing ideas so because we all have the same goal, right? And there's no reason why we can't accomplish that. Maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, maybe it's 2 or 3 years from now, but if we set our intentional then, and we're all badasses. And then somebody said something about money earlier, but when you got really, it's not as inaccessible as people think it is. Because, we just bought a property, and when you buy property, you got 10, 20% down payment. And if you get 10 people to go in on a down payment of $50,000, that's $5,000 each. The legal structure, a little bit of a challenge. I don't know how, if it's whose credit gets checked or whatever. Is it everybody together? Some of the banks are gonna be like, whoa. But that's why me and Rebecca have aspirations to create a permaculture bank. Bill's gonna be in on it.
Hey,
So,
I know a lot about that.
Yeah? Yeah.
It got squashed about 2008, but we were gonna do a permaculture credit union in San Marcos, which was a branch of one in New Mexico. But it got gobbled up and all that happened.
Oh, bad timing.
Yeah, and doing, it took years to actually get that status as a credit union, and everybody that would be on that board, bend over, and it's quite a grueling process, but opening the branch was like the fast track to it. So I would suggest that, maybe even a local like Austin Telco or some cool.
Just convince one.
Austin Telco is very cool credit union.
All it takes is one that's willing to take a little bit more risk,
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
kind of weird.
Those guys are probably open to that idea of doing an extension like that.
Maybe if you
Branch or whatever you call it.
Sure.
It's a separate entity, but under the charter.
Yeah, and we could also what we do is what are the barriers? What are the hurdles? Okay, how do we break those barriers down? So even if the permaculture, even if a bank or a charter, that's the old world. What if instead it's we go find crypto billionaires and they finance it or whatever, because.
Well, and a credit union is different, than a bank in that you don't have the flexibility that a bank has. You can't your money people that are members of the credit union are limited in how much cash they can install in the credit union, and that's a major bummer.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
We'll figure it out. Let's do it. Okay, so,
I'll send you the website.
sure. Yeah, I'd like that. Does anyone have any ideas of what other action cadres that might benefit the community? Anybody? Anything that we haven't talked
I have a
about?
question. There is like an employment one, correct? Or like job seekers or, like entrepreneurs and.
Yeah, there's a mastermind one. I haven't been on that in a while. I don't know how active it is. And then I know Val, Rita's amazing husband, he created one to help train people on a remote work that he does. It's like accessible. You got a little bit of training to use some technology. And there's a bunch of people in there. And he's been helping people to get jobs with this remote work type thing. If there isn't one, then we should start one. And that's all it takes. And I'd be all over it. I have 2 businesses and they're growing. So the first thing I do when I want to hire someone is like, hey, free yourself. I found my boy right over here. So, okay, cool. All right, does anyone have any other ideas? If you you could literally just go create a group and then we'll put it out there and people will join. And that's a great thing that we need very much so.
And even just learning about like, for people entering the marketplace in this new idea, like cryptocurrency and how are we, what do we do taxes? And I mean, I'm in grad school right now, but I am looking for a job. And so in trying to find a job that is with like-minded people, it's just I don't really know where to start.
Yeah, well, there's like-minded people that own businesses, there's like-minded people that are looking for jobs, and all we gotta do is make it.
Okay, so does anybody have any other ideas?
I just want to throw out too, around the property thing, this sort of the imagination, like everybody's just sort of like banks and or the millionaire crypto, which is great. I mean, that's outside the box, but I did like a full-on intensive weekend real estate course with there's a couple in Austin that's very Shanola, and I don't know, that's somebody they might know out there. Yeah, Shanola and Dave or something. Anyway, they're, huh? Yeah. And they had, multi-million dollars in real estate, but they're
gonna finance our property.
They're gonna finance all of it, yeah. Well, the point is that they are very creative in terms of the deals that they help facilitate, because their whole thing is like essentially getting people who are about to lose their house in bankruptcy and creating these different, orchestrating these different kinds of contracts for people who, hey, it's like, I can pay for this house, I need the note in trade for this, but it keeps you from, so there's all these really creative ways to do the actual contract, but also there are a lot of people, like we were just talking about, like just older farmers, like there's such a crisis in that department where like people are like, the family doesn't care about it, they're gonna basically die. And it's like coming up with a plan and saying, like, listen, this is the thing that we would like to do. What can we work out with you? And then lastly is also, we have a couple of friends who actually got large tracts of property. They're usually very raw through just tax lien situations. So, I mean, like literally pennies on the dollar for 80 acres in New Mexico, Colorado, that's just open land. And there's a development issue, but you've got to start somewhere. So, and it's super cheap. These people are very hippie. So, and if they can do it,
maybe we can invite them to speak.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have them talk about it. Sweet.
Okay, so we have a little less than an hour left, and I'd like to open up the floor for discussion, ideas, announcements. So I can either end the stream, or everyone that wants to say something's got to come up and say it from the stage. What would y'all prefer? Or we can end the stream and then we just all sit around. What do y'all prefer? Anybody care either way? All right.
I like to
end the stream. Okay. Hey, I want to thank everyone that's tuned in, and if you are part of the Freedom Cell community, or if you're wanting to start a Freedom Cell, we've really got a lot of momentum and doing a lot of cool stuff here in Central Texas, so I invite you to learn from what it is that we're doing, emulate it, improve upon it, and do what you can to build a free society. All right, John Bush, Peace and Freedom. Freedomcells.org is the website, freedomcells.org.